Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Optimus Fantasy Football Waiver Wire Show. I am your host, Nate Polvogt. Thank you so much for joining us on this fine Monday night. We have one game going right now. The Bills and the Falcons are playing. I know Dawson Knox has a touchdown. I've been running around with my kids, so not 100% plugged in, Evan, but we know it's the Bills. It's going to be a high-scoring game, hopefully. I need it so I can beat Fantasy Alarm's Howard Bender in an auction league this week.
Yeah, so it was Dawson Knox that responded to Tyler Allgeier's touchdown to open the game. So if you have Bijan Robinson, you're not happy, but Bijan's still going to get some more volume.
If you're not used to the whole Tyler Allgeier sniping touchdowns from Bijan Robinson thing, man, you better get used to it because it's going to continue to happen. We're in year 3 of it, Evan. I don't understand why people aren't understanding this yet. But they're not, and that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to comb through the waiver wire for you, the fantasy manager, so you don't have to. We're going to give you our top plays at every position for this week. But before we get into that, Evan, I want to highlight something here that we've been working very hard on behind the scenes. Tools.optimusfantasy.com, folks. We have everything to help you win over there. This past weekend, we launched a betting optimizer that will give you all of the best bets for the weekend, tell you which ones you should be playing, which ones you need to be backing off. You can set a whole set of props, parlays, everything. We've got it all there for you. And on top of that, up to the date, up to the minute data through the games for your lineups, for your waiver wire claims. We've got everything to help you get through the week. 25% off your first 4 months with the promo code OptimusFall, Evan. And with that,
I knew that was going to happen.
I had a feeling too. We rushed in here a little bit. I was running a little bit late, so we'll bear through it. But let's get to these quarterbacks, Evan. And the first one I want to talk about, Joe Flacco. The old man, he was in Cleveland. He got a week off. Now he's in Cincinnati. Like 4 days prep, this dude comes in to start, right? Not high expectations for him at all. He finishes the week QB 12, Evan, which I don't know that should be that surprising to us because of the offense he has around him. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, we can argue about how we feel about Chase Brown, but he has the weapons to be successful from a fantasy standpoint. I think he's even possibly startable in some situations in 1 QB leagues right now, Evan.
I wouldn't go that far for 1 QB leagues. I would say that he is a QB2 that you can start in a pinch in 2 QB and Superflex leagues. Joe Flacco is still going to be struggling in rougher games behind that terrible offensive line, and yet he has the elite weapons possible to make this work. I mean, when you have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, it's really difficult not to be good. But the problem with this whole Bengals team is that there's nothing that's good about this offense. I mean, sure, you could say that Jamar Chase is still elite and T. Higgins is still borderline elite as well, but this Bengals team is garbage this year. It is. There's nothing good about this team that works. The Bengals wide receivers are leading the league in fumbles with 5. And I don't believe anybody fumbled last night or yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, but Joe Flacco is going to be a spot start if you are like ultra desperate for a quarterback. He's not somebody I'm willing to start in 1 QB leagues, but for 2 QB leagues, you can absolutely start him again. He's going to have that Pittsburgh defense in an AFC North rivalry I'm not looking forward to because I think Pittsburgh is going to blow them out. But then they got the Jets and the Bears pass defense, which I hate to talk trash about my own pass defense, but I'm a little worried about it coming up soon here. So Flacco's got some easier games ahead. But like I said, I'm not looking to act like he's back.
So I'm going to disagree with you here just a little bit because I look at this offense and I don't think Flacco's good for regular. He's not a real football top-notch quarterback. He's not even like a top-notch necessarily fantasy quarterback, but what he is someone who gets the ball downfield and he has 2 receivers that are really solid, deep down the field threats. Flacco's going to be peppering them with balls because, Evan, they're going to be losing. And what does this team do well? Throw the ball. I don't love him in real football, but from a fantasy standpoint, I think we're going to see enough volume where he's going to be kind of teetering that edge of like mid QB2 to like high end QB2. And I do think that there are matchups coming up where he will end up in that QB1 tier. I'm not saying you go out and start him every week in a 1 QB league, but I think you can see some of the matchups. And if you've got bye weeks, I'm okay plugging Flacco in if options are limited on the waiver wire. However, hopefully, we'll see, because right now Flacco's 14% rostered on Sleeper, 4.6% on ESPN. This next guy's a little bit higher rostered. Sam Darnold, Seattle Seahawks, 51% rostered on Sleeper, 23% on ESPN. This is a guy, even in 1 QB leagues, Evan, and I'm sure you're going to disagree with me here, but I think he's a viable start in 1 QB leagues. He's QB6 from week 2 on. So for the last 5 weeks, he's QB6 overall in fantasy. You take away that week 1 matchup against San Francisco where he had like 4.5 fantasy points, somewhere 4 or 5 fantasy points. He's been very good. He's getting the ball to Jackson Smith and Jigba. He's getting the ball to Cooper Kupp. They're using AJ Barner, and the run game's been effective enough that it's kind of insulating Sam Darnold. He would be my priority on the waiver wire this week. If you need a quarterback, Sam Darnold is the one you should absolutely 100% be targeting. Anyone else we talk about is secondary tonight.
So we don't have the waiver wire rankings posted yet on OptimusFantasy.com. I have Sam Darnold listed at number 1 for quarterbacks that you should be targeting if he is available. He has 51% ownership in Sleeper and 23.1% in ESPN. If we were talking about this week 1, Nate, yes, I would have thought you were insane for recommending to pick up Sam Darnold. Maybe even week 2, where he threw 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions against the Steelers. Kevin O'Connell must have unlocked something in Sam Darnold that has made him a quality starter finally on the Seattle Seahawks, where sometimes that's just what it takes. It's like you need that one coach that can really unlock your true potential in the NFL, which Sam Darnold did not have on the Jets. He did not have on the Panthers, and the guy's lucky to even be not seeing ghosts anymore. That's how bad the first half of Sam Darnold's career has been thus far. So he didn't do a whole lot on the San Francisco 49ers 2 years ago as a backup, but then as a Viking spot starter when J.J. McCarthy had that terrible meniscus tear, he balled out for that Vikings team. Yep. He wasn't perfect by any means, but this is a guy that absolutely belongs as a starter in the NFL if he didn't have his career, stifled by just really bad coaching. So Sam Darnold absolutely should be a priority on the waiver wire if you are in need of quarterback help, even in 1 quarterback leagues. If you're already good at quarterback, don't bother adding Sam Darnold until it's a bye week time. You don't need to do it. But if you absolutely need a quarterback right now, don't be afraid to pay up for Sam Darnold at this point. I wouldn't go crazy. I wouldn't go higher than maybe 12, 13% tops, but this is a guy that you can justify paying up for now.
I'm at a point, if I need a quarterback in 1 QB or 2 QB, I'm willing to pay 20 to 30% of what I have left in my FAAB. Because if you're in that desperate need of a quarterback at this point, you're going to have to pay up. And it's going to be hard in any season, any year that you're playing fantasy, to find a quarterback of this quality on the waiver wire this late in the season. So just be aware, if you need Sam Darnold, there's a good chance you're going to have to pay up for him in your league. The last one we're going to talk about, and look, by no means am I excited about this guy. We've talked about him almost every week for the last, 3 to 4 weeks. Spencer Rattler, New Orleans Saints, 11% rostership on Sleeper, 3.7% on ESPN. And look, he's probably the reason I bring him up, and I'm going to keep bringing him up, is there are really 2 to 3 viable quarterbacks on the waiver wire every week. Spencer Rattler just happens to be one of those guys who you could almost guarantee you're going to get double-digit points out of him every week. This was his worst week against New England. He only had 11.08 fantasy points. But that's his floor, right? 10, 11 points is pretty much going to be Rattler's floor. If you're scraping for a quarterback, Sam Darnold's gone. You can't get him. Joe Flacco's gone. You can't get him. Aaron Rodgers is off the waiver wire. You can't get him. Spencer Rattler's a guy who's fine.
Yeah, he's fine in the sense that you're going to get double-digit production out of Spencer Rattler thanks to his rushing upside. That being said, Spencer Rattler, you know this for sure, Nate. You got to watch him at the Senior Bowl last year. He didn't look that good, and he's lucky to be starting for the Saints right now for the second year in a row. He wasn't the original starter last year. He had to fill in when Derek Carr had that career-ending shoulder injury, but Spencer Rattler is definitely not the future for the Saints, and I would not be surprised if they turn to Tyler Shough later in the season if the Saints continue to struggle. Spencer Rattler really is not playing bad, though. I gotta be honest. He's playing okay. He's playing about as well as you expect out of a mobile backup quarterback. On the level of like a Marcus Mariota, except I still say that Mariota's more talented than Rattler, but I digress. Rattler should be a last resort option in one quarterback leagues if you missed out on all the others. If your quarterback like Brock Purdy still hurt, or Tua
is your quarterback.
Yeah, if Tua is your quarterback. I mean, isn't that crazy that we're talking Spencer Rattler over Tua Tagovailoa at this point?
Well, but it sucks, but it's the reality of where we're at. Miami's a joke. This team is an absolute mess, Evan. There's nothing you can trust there whatsoever. Before we move on to the next segment, which is, of course, running backs, I want to get to a couple of these things in the chat. First, Frank in the chat. Make sure you guys check out Trade Addicts and the DAP Network on your favorite podcasting network and here on YouTube as well. I need to see the Bears D out of the bye before I jump on the Rattler train, which is fair. Like we said, not excited about the guy, just he's a viable option. And then we've got Tron Force with a question for us. He's currently got Dallas Goedert at tight end. Would you, Evan, pick up Harold Fannin off of waivers, trade Goedert for Jalen Waddle, and use Fannin at tight end over Dallas Goedert rest of season? This is a move you can make because Goedert just had that huge game on Sunday. That said, I don't think I would do this. I don't love Harold Fannin, but I don't love Jalen Waddle.
I was about to say the same thing. I don't love any other pieces in this Miami offense. We need to see Mike McDaniel, or as I've been calling him, Mike McDonald, because I've been associating his name with Ronald McDonald because I think Mike McDaniel's an absolute clown. I think he needs to go before we see the Dolphins get better at just everything. Right now, this team is not being led by anybody. Mike lost the locker room last year, and they're still struggling to be a team as a result because nobody's leading them. I don't think you need to go this far, Tron Force. I think picking up Fannin off of waivers and going double tight end in tight end and flex for both Goedert and Fannin is a good way to go. I think double tight end is something that doesn't get talked enough about in your standard typical PPR redraft leagues because that's more of a DFS move than a redraft move, and I think it's a very underrated thing to do. Don't sleep on these tight ends anymore. I mean, I might be a little biased because I cover the tight ends in their waiver wire article, which you can check out on optimusfantasy.com after the show. I agree with Nate on this. I wouldn't do this. I would just say, keep Goedert, keep Fannin. I wouldn't trade for Waddle until Mike McDaniel, or as I call him, Mike McDonald, gets fired.
So every time you say Mike McDonald, I think of, is it Mike McDonald from Doobie Brothers and soft rock fame? Anyway.
I mean, the Seahawks also have Mike MacDonald, which I try not to confuse people with.
Yeah. Okay, so Frank in the chat saying this. Breaking news, Bijan is still good. 81 yards to the house. What? I love it. And then this one. If you get Waddle for Goedert, run, don't walk. That's my opinion. And I will say, if this is a dynasty trade, Tron, I would make it. In dynasty, smash accept, don't even look back. But if this is redraft, I have reservations about Jalen Waddle rest of season, what this Miami team is. He's going to have some boom games, but he's also going to have some really basement floor games, which honestly just kind of worries me long-term for him this season. Yep.
This will keep
Here
happening,
we go.
folks.
It's going to happen every time we switch segments. So, you know what we're going to
Let's keep doing it right now. Let's get it over with, ladies and gentlemen, so that we don't keep interrupting the flow.
All right, there we go. The joys of live on YouTube here. We're going to get to our running backs now, Evan. This is not a fun group to talk about. These are some names I was hoping we wouldn't have to talk about. But we're going to start with Bam Knight over in Arizona. Yes, Trey Benson is on IR. Yes, Michael Carter got relegated to a back roll behind Bam Knight. We were told it was going to happen on Sunday morning. Some of us, this guy, didn't necessarily believe it was going to happen, but 19% rostered on Sleeper, 5%, 5.6%, rostered on ESPN. Look, he got 11 carries for 34 yards, saw 2 targets. Nothing super special about what Bam Knight did, but he got the touchdown. That was what made it special. That's what made it worth rostering him this Sunday. Is he someone you're going out to get if you're running back needy, or is this more of a break in case of emergency, break glass in case of emergency type player?
I lean more toward break in case of emergency in the case of Bam Zonovan Knight. I know we don't call him Zonovan anymore, but that's how I know him, but we'll call him Bam Knight. So Bam Knight saw 51% of the snaps, and he averaged 3 yards per carry on 11 carries, which is yucky terrible against a tough Colts defense. But he fell into the end zone, so if you're in PPR or standard or even half PPR leagues, you don't really care as much because he fell into the end zone for the second time in 2 weeks. I am not banking on that for any player. The touchdowns are indicative of just circumstance. They're not necessarily indicative of what their real value is. And Bam Knight does not get used enough in the passing game to make me want to make him a higher priority compared to a lot of the other running backs we're going to be talking about momentarily here. So in the unpublished waiver wire rankings we have not yet done, I have Bam Knight as my RB3 behind Kenneth Gainwell and Kimani Vidal, which I'm hoping we can transition into Vidal from here.
Yeah, no, we're moving straight over to Kimani Vidal because I'm done with Bam Knight. Any more interest long-term in Kimani Vidal? I mean, he saw the volume. We thought it was going to be more of a split between him and Hassan Haskins. In fact, a lot of people were thinking that it was going to be more Hassan Haskins in general, but not the case. Kimani Vidal, he goes off. 18 carries for 124 yards. He sees 3 receptions for 14 and a touchdown. All said and done, 22.8 PPR fantasy points. Evan, is this sustainable as long as Omari and Hampton is out?
No. And allow me to elaborate. So, Kimani Vidal had the hot hand. Hassan Haskins stunk against the worst run defense in the NFL. They had to give the ball to Vidal because Haskins could do nothing with it. And that's the other thing I wanted to remind people. He played the Dolphins. They can't stop anything this year. I'm not even sure if they can stop a college offense at this point. That's how bad this Dolphins defense is. So tread carefully with Kimani Vidal. Do not spend too much on your FAAB to go get Kimani Vidal. If somebody wants to empty the bank for Kimani Vidal, so be it. But if you happen to have $100 FAAB dollars left in your budget, I would not go higher than about 20. I would say don't go higher than about a fifth of your budget for Kimani Vidal, because this is a low-end RB2 value rest of season that you can safely have on your bench unless the Chargers actually do go trade for another running back, which right now they're just rumors. There's no indication that the Chargers are going to be able to trade for anybody at this point, but like I said, tread carefully with Vidal. Do not overspend for him. He played the Dolphins. He's going to have to face the Colts next week, the Vikings next week. Those are 2 tougher matchups. I know that the Vikings defense looked terrible against, they played the Jets in London, right?
Yes.
Yeah, something like that. But in any case, these are going to be 2 tougher matchups. Don't go crazy for Vidal. I would say 1/5 of your FAAB budget is fine.
I think 1/5 is reasonable. I'm a little bit higher on him than you are. At least I think we get into the week 12 bye, and after that we see Omari and Hampton back. No reason to bring him back before that if they don't need to. And I don't think that they necessarily need to. I think Vidal's going to see decent volume. I think we can look at him as a 10 to 15 carry guy most weeks. He's probably going to be under 100 yards. I like him for a touchdown opportunity pretty much every week that he's in the game. But again, I think 20% is reasonable. Let's move down to Kendre Miller over in New Orleans. 45% rostered on Sleeper, 25.2% rostered on ESPN. We keep hearing that he's going to start seeing more work. He saw about the same snap share he saw last week, 39%, 8 carries for 21 yards. He's been a hot name on the waiver wire. People have been talking about him, but is it valid? Is there something coming for him, or is the evening out of the snap share less indicative of what his volume is going to be moving forward over Alvin Kamara?
So the only thing the top point I'm going to make about Kendre Miller is that he is seeing standalone value that is proving to be a worthy low-end flex option in case you are like completely out of other people to start in flex. Kendre Miller used to be a handcuff to start the season, but now that he's seeing 31 to 39% of the snaps, that's enough work to at least justify standalone value that goes beyond handcuff. He's not taking Kamara's job. I'd like to go on record by saying he's not taking Alvin Kamara's job unless Kamara gets hurt or if he continues to struggle like he has been this season, averaging a little over 3 yards per carry in the last 2 games against the Giants and the Patriots. Now, my Bears, unfortunately, struggle to stop the run these days, which I bring some tears to my eyes, but that's going to be an opportunity for Kamara to have a little bit of a bounce back game next Sunday. When my Bears take on the Saints. Kendre Miller is not a guy that I'm dying to go out and get, but if you can get him for anywhere between, I'd say 8 to 10% of your FAAB, that's fine.
I think you can get him for less than that. I think this is like a 5 to 7% of FAAB for Miller. He's kind of a wait and see what happens guy. I do think he's going to start to see more volume. He's not going to take Kamara's job. But I think at a certain point, we're going to start to eke into a 60-40, 70-30 split as we get later in the season. It becomes clear this isn't a team that's competing. They want to maybe try and keep Spencer Rattler from getting killed on the field. They start to run a little bit more with Kendre Miller. I could see that happening. Now, the last one we're going to talk about, this one is definitely more speculative, Evan. Brashard Smith over in Kansas City, 14% rostered on Sleeper, 4.2% rostered on ESPN. Look, he hasn't seen a ton of volume. We got real excited week 4 against Baltimore. He had a 26% snap share. He saw 4 carries and 4 targets. Here's the thing. Since then, week 5 against Jacksonville, 9% snap share. He saw 4 carries for 9 yards, 4 targets, 3 catches for 27. We'll take the catches, right? 6.6 PPR points. Week 5 against Jacksonville, very similar story. He had a 9% snap share. 1 carry for 4 yards, 3 targets, 3 catches for 32. And then against Detroit last night, he did not have a single carry. He's functioning more at this point as a wide receiver. He had 4 targets, 3 catches for 21 yards. However, with the return of Rashee Rice next week, Evan, this offense is going to change its tune. They're going to be able to run the ball because teams won't be so focused on what they're doing on the ground with that extra receiver.
Are they,
I think so. I really do think so. And it's not going to be, look, it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be super efficient. I'm not saying all of a sudden Isaiah Pacheco is going to be a somebody. Kareem Hunt's not going to be a somebody. But I can see Brashard Smith leaking into this and becoming a back-end reliable flex play towards the end of the season. If this is a team that's in playoff condition, they're going to need that extra zing out of the backfield, and I think they can get it from Brashard Smith. If you have an open spot on the back of your roster, I would add Brashard Smith. If you don't have any other glaring needs right now and you've got room for a speculative ad, Brashard Smith should be your guy this week.
Sorry for the field. Jake Moody, as a brand new Chicago Bear, just got promoted from the practice squad. Just made his first field goal as a Bear. Hallelujah! He's not missing field goals anymore. Anyway, back to Brashard Smith. I am not willing to touch any running back from the Chiefs this year. If you have to start a Chiefs running back, you're in trouble, my friends, because Brashard Smith has seen 9% of the snaps for 2 weeks in a row. They are not ready to roll Brashard Smith out there as if he's going to be the future for this backfield. There's still Kareem Hunt. There's still Isaiah Pacheco. They both suck. I want nothing to do with either one of them. I don't think Rashee Rice's return is going to mean that all of a sudden they can run the football. Matt Nagy is their offensive coordinator. All he likes doing is calling running back draws and wide receiver flat routes. This is not an exciting offense. They happened to upset the Lions last night because Patrick Mahomes finally threw for 3 touchdown passes and took one to the house himself. He had a great game. I'm not looking for anybody out of this backfield in the Kansas City Chiefs. Brashard Smith, if you're in a deeper league and you need somebody speculative, he's perfect to add if he's not already taken by now. Shallow leagues, do not go out of your way to add Brashard Smith yet. He's not seeing enough work. He's getting some passing game work, but it barely counts as flex work. So I'm out on Brashard Smith until further notice.
Well, and again, like I said, this is a speculative ad. I'm looking at the future, and I think he could be someone who, towards the end of the season, could be viable. You have some injuries, you've got a bye week. I think he's worth at least looking at in that respect. But with this respect, let's move on to the wide receivers, Evan. This is an interesting one because we've had some big injuries this week. Most notably, Emeka Egbuka looks like he could be out for a few weeks. That Tampa Bay wide receiver room is beat up on a team that loves to throw the ball. So there's a couple places we're going to go in this offense where we want to target. But the first one is Sterling Shepard, the veteran wide receiver, the former New York Giant. over in Tampa Bay now. Sleeper, 24% rostered. ESPN, 14.8% rostered. Look, this isn't great. I didn't think we'd be talking about Sterling Shepard, but the fact of the matter is right now, he is the veteran wide receiver in this offense. Otherwise, we're looking at Kayshon Johnson and Tez Johnson, two rookies who saw targets yesterday. Tez Johnson gets the touchdown, but Jalen McMillan's hurt too. So really, Sterling Shepard is the veteran guy that I think is going to start seeing some actual decent volume. He's got 2 games over 10 PPR fantasy points. He's seeing 4 to 5 targets a game. He only saw 3 last week, which I thought was interesting given the injuries. But moving forward, it looks like Igbokwe could be out a couple of weeks. Godwin's probably out 2 to 3 weeks. We don't know when Mike Evans is coming back.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know when Jalen McMillan's coming back. That's a neck injury, which is never good. I think if you're going to add a wide receiver this week, especially one from this Tampa Bay offense, it's got to be Sterling Shepard.
Yeah, it has to be Sterling Shepard. He's going to be the de facto wide receiver 1, but that does not necessarily mean it's a good thing. Hold your horses on Sterling Shepard. Let me elaborate. The Buccaneers are now down to Sterling Shepard, Cameron Johnson, the second-year guy out of Barton, and now Tez Johnson, the rookie out of Oregon. Yeah. Tez Johnson caught a really cool touchdown for 45 yards. Now, that does not mean that he is a must-add just because that gave him 13.5 PPR points. There's not enough volume that's going to justify picking up Tez Johnson, but Sterling Shepard should see the lion's share of the snaps and should see, I think at least 6 targets should be justifiable for somebody like Sterling Shepard, but we're going to get to this later, but Cade Otton is now the only pass catcher I want out of this Tampa Bay Buccaneer receiving core. I will save my thoughts on Cade Otton for the tight ends. Spoiler, wink. So, Sterling Shepard, don't go above... I would say don't go above like $15 FAAB dollars if you even have that much anymore. Otherwise, I'd say don't go above like 15% of your FAAB.
I was going to say 5 to 10. We don't know if he's going to be effective with Baker Mayfield in this offense. I just know that he's going to see an ass ton of volume. And we will talk about Cade Otton later. He's one of my favorite players on this Waiver Wire show. So that'll be a fun one to talk about. But let's move on. I digress. Josh Downs, Indianapolis Colts, 49% rostered on Sleeper, 41.5% rostered on ESPN. The last 2 weeks, he's got 15 targets, 12 catches. He's got a touchdown. He looks like a guy who's going to be involved in this offense with or without Alec Pierce around. I think I just want to have Josh Downs on my roster. He feels like a solid player who's going to see volume in a good offense. I know that there were questions about him, but we've seen, again, 15 targets the last 2 weeks. I'm interested in Josh Downs. I think he's one of the better ads this week.
Josh Downs, let's go. Yeehaw, out of North Carolina. Josh Downs, yeah, he's seeing enough volume that's making it worth an ad. I was going to say, compared to Sterling Shepard, if you're looking for a guy to spend that 15 FAAB dollars on, Josh Downs should be higher on your priority list compared to Sterling Shepard. Shepard is not going to magically take on Mike Evans' volume and all of a sudden be a wide receiver 1 for the week. Josh Downs is closer to that than Shepard. Now don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that Josh Downs is ever going to carry wide receiver 1 volume, but when you have 15 targets over the last 2 weeks, that means Daniel Jones trusts you. Yep. To go along with Michael Pittman, who is, I think he's still the de facto wide receiver 1, but then again, do the Colts really have a true wide receiver 1 anymore? I don't even know, but regardless, Josh Downs is a guy that you definitely want to pay up for more compared to Sterling Shepard. He's going to have some decent matchups. Chargers are a little beat up on defense. Tennessee, I don't even know if they can stop anybody on defense. Atlanta's secondary is awful outside of Jesse Bates. He's going to have some decent matchups coming up here that may justify flex value if you have to flex somebody coming up. So Josh Downs is finally finding his groove with Daniel Jones. You're going to have to pay up a little more to go get him, though. Don't count on touchdown volume every week, but double-digit fantasy value is reasonable to expect out of Josh Downs from this point on.
Yep. No, 100%. I think he's another top ad this week on the waiver wire. If you need a wide receiver, I want to kill 2 birds with 1 stone here, Evan. You've got Jordan Whittington and Tutu Atwell, Los Angeles Rams wide receivers on this list here. Obviously, with the injured Puka Nacua, we've got to wonder, where is that massive amount of volume going to go? I understand the speculation on these 2 guys. If you're going to add one, for me, it's probably going to be Jordan Whittington as a short-term addition. Though I think with either one of these guys, your expectations need to be severely tempered. The way that this offense has worked in the past, when one of these big guys go down, it doesn't go to a guy like Jordan Whittington. It doesn't, maybe Tutu Atwell. But just because he's been there for, I think this is his 4th season with the Rams.
Yeah.
But it ends up going to guys like Tyler Higbee and Kyron Williams, and then we're going to see a bump for Devontae Adams. He's all of a sudden going to become severely more featured in this offense. I think both of these guys, both rostered right around 2% on Sleeper, just under, let's take a look here, just under 2% on ESPN. If you want to speculatively add these guys, see if they produce over the next couple of weeks because you need a fill-in for flex because you've got Puka. I'm fine with that, but I wouldn't be chasing either one of these guys on the waiver wire this week.
Well, Jesus Christ, Nate. I mean, I'm just watching the rest of my analyst canteen just get poured out because you practically said everything I was going to freaking say. Tutu Atwell, if he does come back in week 7, he's going to be the de facto wide receiver number 2 because he offers more speed, explosiveness. Mm-hmm. I think he's got better hands than Whittington, but if he's not ready to go, then yes, Whittington is going to see more volume. So, Kevin, earlier, when you were just on the air with our great Kevin Tompkins, you guys were just talking about how Jordan Whittington was starting to see Puka snaps. He's starting to fill in for where Puka Nacua left off now that Puka's expected to miss time. But this does not necessarily mean that Whittington is going to inherit all of the volume that Puka got. Like you just said, Tyler Higbee is now going to start seeing more targets in the passing game now that he has to, because Whittington and Atwell are just not that good as receivers. I mean, I hate to disrespect them by saying that, but it's just not going to be pretty. So Tyler Higbee, I know we're not at tight ends yet, but Higbee's another guy I would also consider on the waiver wire, which we can talk about later.
Yeah, I'm not as excited about Higbee. I think what it comes down to for me in any Sean McVay offense, all of a sudden what's going to happen is just going to get way more condensed. If you're missing Puka and Devontae Adams, then we have to have a conversation about which one of these guys is going to start to see some volume. But we're not. Yeah, but we're not, right? We've still got Devontae Adams. And this is it's not just a Sean McVay thing. It's a Matthew Stafford thing. Stafford's going to go where he's comfortable. He's comfortable with Devontae Adams. He knows he's going to catch the ball. He's been throwing to Tyler Higbee for like 3 seasons now, comfortable there. This is where that volume ends up, I do believe. Another one we want to talk about here, and this is a speculative ad again. He's still technically on IR. His practice window has opened. However, Jalen Coker in Carolina. The reason I bring him up, Evan, is not because I think this Carolina offense is going to get better because he's there, but it's because they have to throw the ball to someone other than Tet McMillan. We saw Jalen Coker start to gain favor with Bryce Young and with Dave Canales in this offense at the end of last season before he got hurt. I think this is very simple. He's a back-end wide receiver 3 flex option until he proves differently one way or the other. But before his price goes up, before he's active in the next couple of weeks, if you're looking to stash a wide receiver, Jalen Coker is a great one.
So I had to dance a little bit earlier just because Jaquan Brisker just intercepted why am I forgetting? I always do this. Why am I forgetting the name of the Washington quarterback?
Jaden Daniels.
Jaden Daniels, thank you. I don't know why I have these brain farts sometimes. I'm sorry, folks. Maybe I've been hitting the head too many times. Anyway, back to Jalen Coker. If you're looking for another wide receiver speculative ad, this would be a good one because, like you were just saying, Nate, Bryce Young has to throw it to somebody else besides Tet McMillan. The tight ends suck. The wide receiver depth sucks. Xavier Legette's horrible. Hunter Renfrow is not the same that he used to be on the Raiders. A lot of people overhyped Renfrow because he went 7 for 9 against Arizona's awful secondary and scored 2 touchdowns. And everybody's acting like Hunter Renfrow is back. No, he's not back. He's 29. He's barely serviceable in the NFL anymore. Congratulations to him for making the Panthers roster, but that's not exactly a flex anymore with how bad the Panthers still are. But I digress. Jalen Coker at the end of last year, and even before then a little bit, he was showing some chemistry with Bryce Young, and you love to see it. He had shown some games where he was getting 5 targets, 6 targets, 7 targets, and even 8 targets against the Giants. He isn't going to be a strong red zone option, but at least he's shown that he can be a strong, well, maybe a potentially strong number 2. I mean, I'm saying strong in the terms of Panthers here. You got to cut me some slack here. The Panthers are awful. But If you're looking for another speculative wide receiver to add, if you got to drop somebody like Darius Slayton, for example, go ahead and pick up Jalen Coker. You don't have to spend a lot of money on him either because people are not paying attention. You could probably get him for free, quite frankly. So see if you could pick him up for like less than $1 FAAB if you can, because I don't think a lot of people are going to think about him.
I don't think a lot of people are either. And here's just one more note on Coker before we go, and this is why I like him speculatively. So he did miss weeks 12, 13, and 14 with an injury last season. Then they had the bye in week 11. But in week 10 against the Giants, 88% snap share. That's where he saw those 8 targets. And then after that, after the 3 games missed from injury in the bye week, 87%, 82%, 87%, and 83% or 93% snap share in week 18. Caught all 7 of his targets in week 18 from Bryce Young. And that was on the return of Bryce Young. So I think that's important.
Yes.
It feels like this is someone who can maybe help Bryce Young get going. I don't know if that's really actually going to happen, but in the context of the team, I feel like they maybe believe that he can help Bryce Young a little bit. Therefore, we're going to see high snap shares and we're going to see volume for Coker. And I just think it's inevitable.
Bryce Young, I feel like, is Schrodinger's quarterback. Is he going to be good or is he always going to be bad? Because I feel bad for Bryce Young having been thrown to the wolves like he did and playing completely terrible even against the Patriots and then stepping up against the Cowboys. I don't know what's going on with Bryce Young, but I guess he's their starter for long term. But anyway, folks, if you're looking for another solid wide receiver, go get Jalen Coker. Don't sleep on him.
Yep, he's worth an ad. Now let's move on to those tight ends we've been teasing so much, Evan. And the first one I want to start with, we're going to bury the one that we already started talking about. We'll get to him here in a minute. AJ Barner over in Seattle, 38% rostered on Sleeper. He is 10.1% rostered on ESPN. I didn't think we'd be talking about AJ Barner. I thought it was going to be Elijah Arroyo stepping into that tight end 1 role in Seattle, but it hasn't been. Right now, Barner is tight end 11 in PPR formats. Over the last 3 weeks, he has seen 13 targets, 13 catches, 3 touchdowns. He's well over 100 yards. In fact, Barner has, are you ready for this?
Let's hear it.
2 incompletions all season.
He's got a great set of hands, doesn't he?
Great set of hands. And he's in an offense and with a quarterback who likes throwing to tight ends. Hawkinson last season in Minnesota saw a lot of volume from Sam Darnold. We've seen it in the past. Yep. So, I mean, pretty simply, I just think he's going to see volume. He's a tight end that I'm interested in a weird tight end landscape. And instead of streaming tight ends, I feel like he's a guy that you can roster and hold on to. Seattle's got some good matchups coming up for him too. They've got Houston this week, then the bye, then Washington, Arizona, the Rams, Tennessee, Minnesota, and Atlanta. These are all teams that aren't great at covering tight ends, Evan. He seems like, for me, he's one of the top waiver wire ads at tight end this week.
Not so fast, Nate Polvogt, and I'll tell you why. AJ Barner saw 3 catches, but the reason he crossed double-digit PPR value is because he made it to 71 yards. He averaged 23.67 yards per catch. That is absurd for a tight end, and he did it one other time against the Saints with 1 catch in week 3. Now, that being said, if he gets 3 targets, he'll be lucky to get to 70-some yards. He'll be lucky to even cross 32 yards, and he has to fall into the end zone to be more fantasy relevant. So AJ Barner is somebody that I don't agree with paying up for. I don't believe he is a top tight end ad yet. He just simply does not see enough volume to make it worth your while yet. I would say do not go above $5 FAAB if you have that much left for AJ Barner. Don't spend up on him. There's other tight ends you could go get that are way more worthwhile, which we're going to get to momentarily here.
Well, I'm not. Okay, now to be fair, when I say top tight end ads, that's a very misleading statement, because I'm not paying up for any tight end. If it's not an elite producer, like a guy like all of a sudden seeing Mark Andrews volume, which isn't happening right now, Mark Andrews prime volume, those kinds of guys, I'd spend more than 5%. There's nobody we're talking about on the waiver wire today that I'm going to recommend spending more than like 2 to 3% of your FAAB on, because you just simply shouldn't have to. The next one we're going to go to is Mike Mayer. He is only a thing over there in Las Vegas in the absence of Brock Bauer, but we don't know when Brock Bowers is coming back. 5% rostered on Sleeper, 3.1% rostered on ESPN. This isn't sexy. He had a 92% snap share yesterday, 7 targets, 5 catches for 50 yards and a touchdown. Mayer's a guy where if you're going to roster him, this better be because you have Brock Bowers and you're hurting. He's not going to be a high producer. You're praying for a touchdown, but in a pinch, he'll do this week.
Yeah, he'll do this week. He's nothing more than a streamer. There are better tight end options that you can stream, though. I'll put it to you that way. He can come through against a really bad Titans defense. 5 for 7 for 50 yards, and he fell into the end zone. That's good enough for 16 PPR fantasy points. If you can believe it, Ian Thomas of Panthers fame is now on the Raiders. He saw 30, and we're not going to talk about Carter Runyon. He's not seeing any volume. But nevertheless, Michael Mayer, if you run out of options on the waiver wire, if there's nobody left that you can absolutely go get, you can make a case to stream him, but don't make him your top priority for tight end. I would rather have AJ Barner than Michael Mayer. I'll put it to you that way.
Yeah. Well, and who I'd rather have than all of them is Cade Otton over in Tampa Bay. We started teasing this a little bit ago here. 12% rostered on Sleeper, 8.9% rostered on ESPN. Look, if you are hurting, you need a tight end, you're looking for a good, solid flex player. In the absence of Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Jalen McMillan over in Tampa Bay, and Emeka Egbuka likely going to be out here for a couple weeks, Cade Otton is now the wide receiver 1. You can argue with me all you want. I know you're not going to argue with me, Evan, but I know that there are people who will. Mike Reedy might be one of them. Kevin Tompkins might be one of them. But let's be clear here. This is what he did. This is what he did last season when Tampa Bay was so starved at wide receiver right in the middle of the season. From week 6 through week 10, 6 targets, 10 targets, 10 targets, 11 targets, 8 targets before their bye week. He had 4 touchdowns in that span. He went over 75 yards 3 out of those 5 games. This is what Cade Otton is going to be as long as Evans, Godwin, and Egbuka, or at least 2 of those 3 guys are out. Cade Otton becomes a very high volume tight end. He is the priority on the waiver wire this week, and it's not even close at tight end.
Exactly. It's not even close. Cade Otton absolutely should be atop your tight end for waiver priority order if you really need one. And even if you don't need one, consider adding him anyway, because he's going to show more PPR value than a lot of these terrible wide receiver 3s that you're probably adding to your team anyway. I'd rather have Cade Otton over Jordan Whittington. That's how much I like Cade Otton without everybody else in the Tampa Bay Buccaneer cast to catch the football from Baker Mayfield. And last year's results with Baker proved Cade Otton's worth on this Buccaneers team. He will flirt with double-digit targets now that all the key guys are gone, because it's not like we're looking at guys like Cameron Johnson and Tez Johnson, the double Johnson duo, to steal a bunch of targets from him. No, it's not going to work that way. They're not as talented as their starting wide receivers who can't play. Cade Otton is a must-get. I would much rather... Listen, I know we don't like spending up big on the waiver wire for tight ends, but you could absolutely make a case for double-digit FAAB dollars for Cade Otton, because we're not going to see Evans for a while. We're not going to see Godwin for a while. We're not going to see Egbuka for a while. I wouldn't go higher than about 10 FAAB dollars, like if you're desperate at tight end, though. Otherwise, I'd say like 6 to 8.
Yep. I don't know, man. If I'm looking for a good flex player over the next 3 or 4 weeks, I could think of much worse options than Cade Otton, quite honestly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So these last 2 here, I want to kind of burn through real quick. But the first one, Jonnu Smith over in Pittsburgh, 33% rostered on Sleeper, 18.7% on ESPN. Great streamer this week, Evan. And you wrote about that in our waiver wire article, that he's a really good streamer this week against the Steelers.
Spoiler.
However, against the Bengals. But long term, do you think that there's value to holding him over the next probably like 3 to 4 to 5 weeks as a tight end or flex play that you can roll out?
Before I answer that question, OptimusFantasy.com. Check out the new waiver wire article that we have posted. Spoiler alert, Jonnu Smith is my sleeper of the week. If you're desperate at tight end and there's nobody better, and if Cade Otton's already taken. So to answer your question, Nate, no, Jonnu Smith is not a long-term option at tight end. He is a streamer only. He is a tight end 2 streamer if you are desperate. The Cincinnati Bengals are dead last this year at average fantasy points per game given up to tight ends. I think it's 17.7 so far. Jonnu Smith is in an Arthur Smith offense. I don't know why Arthur loves him so much, but this has Jonnu Smith game written all over it because they got to throw the football to more guys than just DK Metcalf. And by throw the ball, I mean Jonnu Smith is probably going to be used in some weird gadget play on goal line to go end around for some reason because, well, we don't want to get Jalen Warren hurt again. Let's just give it to Jonnu in goal line. I would not be surprised to see the Steelers blow out the Bengals again. And I think this has Jonnu Smith game written all over it. So consider picking him up because it's not like a lot of guys are going to be spending big FAAB dollars. You could possibly get him for $0 if your league allows that. If you have to drop somebody injured and to go get Jonnu Smith, go ahead and do that and plan on selling him high if you can, if he explodes. Otherwise, he's just a good rental.
Yep, I love that. Now the last one, Theo Johnson over in New York, favorite of Jackson Dart, 18% rostered on Sleeper, 16.6% rostered on ESPN. I'll be quick about this one, man. I don't know that I'm super, super, super excited about Theo Johnson, but again, if you're bye weeks, injuries, need a streamer for this week, I don't hate the matchup against Denver, specifically for Theo Johnson, and I'd be willing to roll him out this week. Again, not super excited about it, but I'll do it.
If you're a Ja'Cory Krosky Merit shareholder, he just fumbled, but he didn't lose the fumble, so you can sigh a breath of relief. So, back to Theo Johnson. If you spent big FAAB dollars on Theo Johnson, I'm sorry. You practically did it to yourself, because Theo Johnson was never going to be a long-term option in the passing game, despite the fact that Jackson Dart does like to lean a bit on the tight end position, but it was even said weeks prior that he is a touchdown-dependent tight end too. Don't look for anything more consistent. He is not a permanent addition in this passing offense. They had to get him more involved just because of the loss of Malik Neighbors, as sad as it is to lose him. Darius Slayton, I don't know if he's ever going to come back. Well, the hamstring issue, that's going to linger too, just like what happened with Mike Evans. But Theo Johnson is a guy that you can also pick up for practically $0 FAAB dollars at this point if he's available, because he offers very little. But I don't believe you really need to roster him. He's not a must avoid, but they just don't like using Theo that much.
No, Jackson Dart likes him, and that's why I'm okay. Like you might catch a touchdown, and that's what I'm hoping for if I have to start him this week. Evan, would you start Jonnu over Zach Ertz next week?
Great question. I haven't filled out my rankings yet, but with the way that Zach Ertz is also used in this passing game, I think it's going to be close between the two, because Ertz has blanked out for a couple weeks in a row. He's already got one catch for 4 yards this evening. He missed his only target against the Chargers. He's a low upside or tight end one is a good way to describe him, but
I wouldn't start Jonnu over him against Dallas. Washington's playing Dallas.
Yeah, so the reason I'm stuttering is just because I hate to doubt Zach Ertz, because when I do, he gets like 10 targets and 8 catches for like 2 touchdowns, and then I look like a jackass. So I have to temper my expectations here for Zach Ertz. But if you can't get Zach Ertz, you can absolutely start or flex Jonnu Smith. I think this has Jonnu Smith game written all over it still.
Yep, I do too. We're going to move on, though, Evan. We're going to move on to kickers. We'll be very brief about this one. This one's pretty simple this week. We've got Eddie Pinheiro over in San Francisco. He's kicker 2 right now, yet he is rostered in less than 30% of leagues on ESPN and on Sleeper. All he's done, he's missed 1 kick since he took over. 1 kick. That's it. 1 kick. Yep. He's been perfect on field goals. He's made every single field goal, including he's got 4 over 50 so far this season. If you need a kicker, he's a guy you can add. He's not just a streaming kicker. He's someone that I would hold on to rest of season in your kicker slot. That goes for Kaime Fairbairn as well over in Houston. Again, 23% on Sleeper, 21.2% rostered on ESPN. And he's been good. He's missed a couple of kicks, but he's had a lot of opportunity. He's perfect on field goals, and he's got 5 kicks over 50. So if you're a league that gets bonuses for longer kicks, Fairbairn and Eddie Pinheiro, 2 guys that you really should be looking at as streaming kickers. And then 100%. Will Lutz in Denver. I think Will Lutz is always a guy that you can look at. He's fairly reliable. Sean Payton's more willing to kick sometimes with Lutz there. It's not sexy, but if you're streaming kickers, it's not going to be, Evan.
Yeah, so the order that you guys should have in your waiver order, if you really want to waste that on kickers, I don't usually recommend spending waiver priority order on kickers, but if you have no choice, if you're in a league with no FAAB and you have to, and kickers are probably going to be something that your league is desperate for, your order should be Pinheiro, Fairbairn, and then Lutz, because the 49ers, when it comes to kickers, I don't know what it is about the Shanahan offense, but it is always kicker friendly. You wouldn't know it by how badly Jake Moody kicked for them, but thank goodness he's kicking well for my Bears tonight. He's already connected on 2 for 2 tonight. But I digress. So Pinheiro also used to be the Bears kicker. I liked him when he was with the Bears. He only missed 2 in his time with us. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I take that back. He missed 5. He didn't have the greatest year, but as a 49er, I don't think he's going to be missing very many more this year. I think he's absolutely a guy that you can make a priority or compared to Fairbairn and Lutz.
Yep. No, I've been saying this for 3 weeks, man. Come on, people, get on board. If you're in your kicker leagues, go roster the damn guy. And then, guys, we're going to round out the show with a handful of players we think you should just stay the heck away from. These are our waiver wire avoids. We're going to start with a couple of running backs. Sean Tucker, Kyle Monangai over in Chicago. Both of these guys seem like a trap to me. They're going to see some middling volume. It's never going to be enough to be relevant, Evan. They're traps. There may come a time when you can stream a guy like Sean Tucker if the Bucky Irving absence lasts any longer. If there's any sort of injury to Rachaad White, sure, fine. Outside of those situations, these are guys you just don't want on your team. That goes for Luke McCaffrey, Kayshon Boutte, Romeo Doubs, Matthew Golden, Luther Burden, Keon Coleman, Tyquan Thornton, and Ryan Flournoy at the wide receiver position. Guys, these are players who are traps. We've talked about them last week, back again this week. Players that are relying on an in-game injury to be even remotely fantasy relevant. They're players you need to be staying away from on the waiver wire.
So, yes, everybody we've named so far are guys that you do not need to add. Sean Tucker is clearly the backup to Rachaad White. They do not want to use him for anything important. Don't go after him. Kyle Monangai is also playing second banana to DeAndre Swift. Don't go at him. That being said, it looks like the Bears are in goal line formation right now. We'll see if they punch it in or if they try some trickery. Yep, here comes the rollout. Caleb's taking it to the house himself. Touchdown, Caleb Williams. Never mind. That's why you shouldn't add Kyle Monangai, because they're not going to use him in goal line situations like that. Perfect timing for that segment, by the way.
Yeah, right? No kidding. And then, the last one we're going to touch on here, Jake Tongas. It's been fun. The Jake Tongas breakout. Guy who saw 1 target in his career the previous 3 seasons before joining San Francisco. He's played well. Again, like I said, it's been fun to watch the guy kind of break out, but Kittle's back.
Once Kittle's back, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to take away all value for Tongas. If you sold now, if you're the type of fantasy manager who sold Tongas high, pat yourself on the back. You're amazing. Mm-hmm. Because Tongas is now going to be practically useless when Kittle comes back. It's not a guarantee that Kittle will be back for week 7 yet. He's going to practice this week.
Right.
We need to see how he feels first before he takes the field. So it's not 100% yet that Tongas is not going to get Kittle light production, I should say. But if you've got Kittle on IR waiting all this time, just like Joe Hammy mistakenly on Twitch has, get ready to free him, baby. He'll be back, and he will get his volume when he takes the field. Because all the rest of the 49ers receivers are hurt anyway. It's not going to be the Kendrick Bourne show forever. Kittle's going to take some of that volume.
Yep. Oh, 100%. And you're not starting a tight end in San Francisco if George Kittle's healthy. He's the only one you can start. Well, folks, that does it for us here on the Optimus Fantasy Waiver Wire Show. Heading into week 7, we wish you the best of luck. Make sure you check out tools.optimusfantasy.com. Use that promo code OptimusFall to get 25% off your first 4 months of the best data in the industry. Snap analyzers, red zone tools, betting optimizers, and a DFS optimizer that's going to be coming later in the week. And you're going to love that one because it's going to help you win some money. For Evan Sather, I'm Nate Polvogt, guys. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you on the Waiver Wire Show for week 8 next week.
Thank you.